Hello guys. Ooh. Well, feet up. Today I've decided to do a little waffle. I haven't done one of those for over a year now, or more. So I don't know where it's going, but we'll try. My wife's sister's husband, that would be my brother-in-law, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. He's no longer with us, he died many years ago. But I was privileged to know him. He was a wonderful guy, old-fashioned values and morals, quiet man, gentle man, a lovely man. And he was a part-time builder, I suppose. And he built a bungalow on the Isle of Wight, on a bit of spare land they had. And I think it took about three or 4 years to build it. Anyway, it's built with the idea of selling and making money. And anyway, he put it up for sale, and while the sale was going through, he agreed the price with the guy, said so much, whatever it was, shook his hand, subject to solicitor's contract and that. And some time later on, a property developer turned up and said he would like to buy it, and he said, well, I've already sold it, subject to contract. And the property developer offered him a third as much again. And he says, no, I already shook hands on it. That's the sort of calibre of the man and his values at the time. I don't think it would happen today, would it? But that gives you an indication of how much I admire the bloke. I mention that because he was one of a 7-man crew that flew in Lancaster bombers during the war. He would never talk about the war, never. If you mentioned the subject, he'd walk out the room, or somewhere like that. That's how they handled it, I suppose. Terrible times. Different times anyway. But anyway, it transpired when he died and his children cleared all his things from his house. But as I say, he was a navigator in Lancaster. And in them days, of course, it was dead reckoning. Compass bearings, speed over land, airspeed, effects on wind direction, and so it's all mathematics and calculations. No GPS in them days, no computers or nothing. And in amongst his possessions, when they cleared it all out, there was a very small gold-coloured brooch caterpillar about so long. And he was a member of the Caterpillar Club. And this was a unique club that these little badges were issued not only to military personnel, but to anyone whose life was saved by jumping out of a disabled aircraft because it was shot up or on fire or run out of fuel. And if it was authenticated, you got one of these from the parachute company. The symbolism being that it was a silkworm rather than a caterpillar, actually, with little red ruby eyes. And your life was saved by silk. And your name was engraved on the back of the pin. If any of these come up today, they do occasionally come up for auction. They can go for hundreds, if not thousands of pounds. It was about 4,000 in total from that first day of introducing them to the present day. But he had one of those. So I often wonder what was the situation, what I would have loved for him to talk to me about it and how he got it, so forth. But as I say, he wouldn't talk about it. Anyway, have some tea. Oh, there you go. I usually let that get cold. He was saying nothing. There was some, of course, who couldn't stop talking about the war, you know. But I'll always listen because I'm, you know, interested in these people and their sort of their period of time and their values and so forth. There was another guy he introduced me to at the time before he died, and he was in the Royal Engineers, and he was another interesting bloke, also dead, who was posted to a bomb disposal unit. Oh gosh, they must have been some chaps, mustn't they? And there's all sorts of sizes of bombs fell, and the enemy found out that although all bombs went boom, you know, destruction, death, whatever, they found out that those that didn't go off could be, in some circumstances, more disastrous and more effective, if that's the right word, if they didn't go off. Perhaps they'd have a delayed fuse or timer or some other reason why they didn't. Basically what they were, there was a detonator in every bomb, and it wasn't in the nose as a lot of people think, it's in the side of the bomb, held in by a retaining ring. And the top of the detonator arrangement had a couple of contacts, and these went through to the battery in the detonator, like two prongs like so, and then as it was in the aircraft it was charged up, and then when the bomb was dropped the circuit broke and the bomb was now activated, alive if you like, and dropped. And then the battery connected to a very simple tumbler type switch with a little coil of springy wire in a tube, and if the wire touched the side of the tube it completed the circuit and up went the bomb. But not always, and as I say, sometimes I had a clock inside for delayed action, and if a bomb didn't go off and it happened to fell in a power station or residential areas, streets, whole streets were cut off for days until they could deactivate the bomb, because so it caused an awful lot of hassle, and the bomb disposal people had to go in and remove these, disarm them. Awful lot of casualties. Towards the end of the war, the enemies actually targeted the crews of the bomb disposal, putting in booby traps and so forth. But they all stemmed around this fuse, which was about the size of a small Coke can. And then that set off the main charge, amatol or whatever they were filled with. As I say, there was various sizes. Anyway, to discharge and pull out the fuse, there was a thing called, I think it's called a crab tree, and it went on the top of the fuse, a little nut done up, so it was fixed, and it had a little ring so you could tie a rope to it, or string, strong string cord, so it could be pulled a long distance away and draw the fuse out. Well, that was how the theory goes. But at the same time it shorted out the two connectors discharging the battery, which took a couple of minutes or so. Anyway, this guy did bomb disposal thing, they end up in all sorts of places. And he ended up being down a 16, 17 foot dugout, pit, boarded up with boards, water and mud in the bottom. It was cold, it was drizzlable, he had cold hands and mud everywhere. and he was putting on this crab tree, and he dropped it, and it fell into the mud, as I say, he's into gumboots full of mud, and he stood back, and he must have stood on it and pushed it further into the mud anyway. He's looking everywhere, and it's gone. That's the only one he had. So he had to improvise, which he did, and he got a piece of baling wire, or got him to drop a piece of baling wire in the hole. With a pair of pliers, he put it round the top of the hooves, done up the baling wire, twisted it up, made like a little loop, so he could attach the rope to it and pull it out in a straight line if possible. That was possible. But as I say, sometimes the hooves wouldn't be on top, they'd be right on the side or underneath, and you have to work it with a mirror and a torch. Oh, must have been hell. Anyway, he'd lost the crab tree. So he thought, well, I'll have to discharge the battery. It didn't make the food safe, but it made it safer. Anyway, he put his hand in his pocket and he brought out a coin. This is the very coin. It's George V's 1933 penny. And he held that on the end of the fuse pins, that very coin, for 2 or 3 minutes. What the hell was going through his mind for those? It must have felt like an eternity, wasn't it? Absolute eternity. But several of them took it with cavalier attitude and made joke or light of things. I think it was the way perhaps humans tried to deal with it, because the stress factor must have been horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And when they went to learn about all this, there wasn't much to learn from it. It was learn on the job. By heck, you learned quick, didn't you? But as I say, they just treated it with, or Lot treated it with sort of humour, nature's way of dealing with it perhaps. One guy reported that he would always sit on the bomb when he defeated, and they asked him why he sat on the bomb, and he says, well, if it went off, he says, I doubt I'd know anything about it. Well, that's probably true. Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, you have to admire these people, and you don't hear this nowadays. You don't get to hear it. Have another sip. I won't bore you for much longer. Tea's getting cold anyway. Lovely. While on the subject of bombs, I lived in Colchester at the time. Never moved very far away actually. And we lived right in the middle in a little tiny cottage. Very small. I think we paid 6 shillings a week for rent or something to landlord. Anyway, I remember my parents, well I was told, I can't remember myself, but I was told that during the war at a sentry, the Germans dropped many a sentry bombs. Small things, cylinders about so long. They caused all mayhem and fires all over the shop. And one come through the roof, straight through the stairs into the cupboard under the stairs. And my dad, apparently, they were cooking at the time, and he grabbed a saucepan with something in it and he threw it over him. Put the fire out. He was quite pleased with this. Anyway, he worked at a printing works, not far away. He used to walk a couple of miles. He took this into works, big printing works, and he's shown his mates, look, it's what comes through, blah blah. Foreman come along and he saw this, and he says, you bloody fool, he says, bringing it in here, he says, what are you thinking of? He says, it's still live. He says, oh, I didn't know. He says, it's still live. He says, get rid of the thing, So lunchtime he come home and he's walking up into town home. He walked over the Cone River Bridge in Colchester, and he locked this thing over into the water. Must be there to this day. Yeah, mine's just probably all corroded and gone. Anyway, I thought you'd like this little waffle. I hope I haven't bored you too much. Let me know if you'd rather have something else. I can't say I blame you. Anyway, I'm going to finish my tea, guys, and I've got to get on with some work. I really, really must. So bye for now.